So before we knew how delicate flowers were, we looked at our scars, pricked from picking, and we brought that pain to God, and He brought us purpose. Welcome back to another episode of Eat, Don't Compete, and I am your host, Jazmine DeWeese. And before we get started, make sure that you press that subscribe button. I'm about to announce something very important and I don't want you to miss it. So press that subscribe button. Make sure that you share this episode and all the other episodes in the past with your friends and your family members. Don't gatekeep this information. Get in those comments and let me know what you think. Like, comment, and share. Okay, back to the show, guys. So today I want to talk to you a bit about my book. I have released a poetry book. Of course, this is the not for sale copy, but it's a hard copy poetry book entitled Picking Flowers and Pricking Thorns. We can get more into where that title came from and all those things. But this is, in fact, my second book, and I am excited to share it with you. It is a work of art, right? But before we get into the title and where that came from and all these things, I want to share with you some of the themes of this book and essentially encourage you to purchase the book. Not simply, I have a lot of supporters, but I would like to grow into the community that you're more than a supporter, right? Because supporters will buy one t-shirt because, she made a little t-shirt. So I want to support her. But continued family members, continued community, a continued tribe says that it truly doesn't matter. I'm in this with her. So I want to make sure that I grab my copy because I don't want to be out of the loop. So today we're going to talk a bit about the book and where it came from, the origin story, some themes within it, why it would be of interest to you in the first place. So here we are. I just read to you a sentence. Then that particular sentence is the working theme of the entire book. That sentence allows, hey guys, I have news. I wrote a book. So I want to kind of walk you through, where this book came from and ultimately why you should purchase it. So I didn't just write a book. This is, in fact, a poetry book. A book full of poems that really go into the tension of who I am as a person. And I think that tension is something that you can relate to, which is why I'm sharing it with you and didn't just, keep it in a journal. And I can honestly walk you through my why and, or even my testimony regarding that, but you have to tune into the podcast to hear a little bit more about that. But my why regarding this book, and at this time, the tensions that I wrestled with is beauty and brokenness. The contradictory places we find ourselves in more often than not, growth and loss. But the difference here is just finding out how important it is to include God in those contradictory areas of our lives and to not write him out of it. You see what I did there? But I found that I'm processing life through the lens of who I am in God and not just kind of compartmentalizing God. And I'm really proud of this work. I really am. Like I said, it's not just poetry. It's actually a journey, a process, a respect of process, not one of attempting to be perfect or attempting to perfect something that was never meant to perfect. It's just witnessing to you where I am and sharing with you who I am. The title of this book is called Picking Flowers and Pricking Thorns. That's a mouthful. Picking Flowers and Pricking Thorns. Let you take a look at the cover. Designed this about a year ago. Here's the back. It's an imperfect work. It's a collection of 50 poems. And for any artist, you know that is that is a lot of work. That is a lot of our heart, a lot of our artistry on the pages for you to look at and critique and do all the things that you do. In this, it's a 6-part book. It's, like I said, it's 50 poems, and it's taken through the journey of this one sentence. Before we knew how delicate flowers were, we looked at our scars, picked from picking, and brought that pain to God, and He brought us purpose. So it's a intricate story of becoming, if you will, within the medium of poetry. So I'm excited to be honest with you, to be vulnerable with you, to share and process with you. I am excited that this work will make a difference in someone's life, that this work will cause someone to open up to who God is and what God wants to do in their lives. You know, I went through a personal journey, and I think you can read that in these pages. It's only available in hardcover. I wanted to frame this in a way that you have an experience and not just something I've thrown together. And it's poetry about motherhood. It's a poetry about becoming. It's poetry about process. It's poetry about womanhood. It's poetry about the unknown. It's just a lot in this sense. And the interesting part is I've came into this poetry space as a spoken word artist, and so I don't know that I've ever wanted to actually write and publish a book because of the era and the time frame that I came in. But I am so excited that you guys get to share in this journey with me. I don't know what's next and where the Lord's going to take the poetry, but I've always experienced Him at a high level when I'm able to be the artist that I know He's called me to be. So with that being said, this is Picking Flowers and Pricking Thorns. It is now available on Amazon, and it will soon be available on multiple other platforms by May 2026. So I'm looking forward to you guys not just picking up the book and enjoying it, but sharing it with someone, sharing this video with someone, making sure that you spread the word so that we can grow in our understanding of becoming and what's that like. And it's okay not to know everything. It's okay not to be perfect, but I would love for you to purchase this. It would truly make my heart smile. Picking Flowers and Pricking Thorns, Poems for the Soul. I'm looking forward to hearing what you think about the word. So the sentence that I crafted, it actually outlines what I'm referring to, what I'm talking about throughout the book, because it takes you through a beautiful journey of poetry, not just 50 slapped together pieces in hopes that you might find one that you like. No, I was intentional about how I crafted this book. I've been doing poetry for quite some time, but the how of it, I made sure that it was more deliberate than it was haphazard. So what I wanted to talk to you about, let me make this a little bit. I will be reading because I don't want to miss anything in telling you these things. But the sentence that I read to you it said, before we knew how delicate flowers were, we looked at our scars, pricked from picking, and brought that pain to God, and He gave us purpose. So it's broken into 6 different parts. Before we knew it, that one component, that first piece of the sentence, before we knew it is the before awareness has occurred, right? It's kind of ignorance, if you will. It's the part that we haven't yet recognized who we are, right? In those poems that are encapsulated in that piece, it lacks the understanding and the depth of where we tend to go in our journeys of becoming. So it's the inexperience, it's the unfiltered emotions. So when you're reading it, it's my desire that you will read it from that framework. Second part of the sentence, how delicate flowers were. Now we're beginning to get into this place of awareness. this place of understanding, not everything, but just a little bit more. It's a realization and this initial understanding of one's, spiritual and personal condition. And at this point, it's about being conscious of the need for transformation and the initial steps toward it. Right. And now the third part of the sentence is how delicate flowers were. And now the third part of the sentence is we looked at our scars. Now we're looking at, think about it for a second, like in a more liberal, specific framework. Like imagine yourself actually looking at your scars. What are you doing? You're ultimately reflecting. This is the part of the book that's reflecting on some things. Make sure I can see this. Reflecting on some things. Here's the focus and the introspective component of who I am and my own understanding. This particular theme, it dwells deeper, right? Deeper into examination of self, examination of faith, examination of the world around us. And it encourages you as the reader on this journey into who we are, who we're becoming, and who we are in our relationships with God. So picking flowers, this part is about behavior. So this section and this theme, it emphasizes the changes in the actions, in our actions and behaviors that result from newfound awareness and reflection. So it's about the tangible shifts in our lives, both yours and mine, because I think that as you read through these poems and you read through these themes and you understand a little bit more, you will be aligned with you can relate to some of the stuff will prick you a little bit yourself about what it is that I'm discussing and how relevant it might be to your everyday life. And I think it aligns with some of our spiritual convictions, some of our day-to-day lives, and how we're ultimately getting pricked day in and day out. And then the second to last theme is the second to last part of the sentence, and brought that pain to God. So here we are at a place of surrender. So this thing focuses on the ultimate act of yielding one's will and life to God. Emphasizing trust, emphasizing faith, and emphasizing letting go. It's about the peace and the strength found in surrendering control to God's greater plan for all of our lives. And then the last part of this thematic sentence is, and he gave us purpose. So the key word there is purpose. The purpose in the final theme of this particular book, this theme centers around discovering and living out one's God-given purpose. Because in all the journey that we've taken, we want to arrive somewhere, right? And we want to arrive at a place of purpose based upon the journey that we took and based upon what God has for our lives. And it's about aligning actions, passions, and life direction with divine intent and reflecting mature faith and fulfillment. So I wanted to read that to you guys because I wanted to make sure that I was able to convey the full messaging of why I wrote this book in the manner that I did. I won't be able to read through all poems and things like that, but I did want to open it up with that understanding about why I wrote this book, why I wrote this book the way I wrote this book. So let's get to why I wrote this book in the first place. I, about 2024, I'm beginning to get into my word more, and I'm beginning to build a more in-depth relationship with Christ. And in doing so, I realized that I'm beginning to feel a lot more convictions. And so in feeling these convictions, I'm just like, I get this conviction about spiritual gifting. And if you know anything about me, you know that one of my spiritual giftings is artistic. I'm artistic, and particularly in the way of poetry. I began writing poetry very young. Poetry began as journal entries. Then I was introduced to Maya Angelou, and those journal entries turned into poetry. And it was primarily about a coping mechanism, coping with some of the things that was happening around me, trying to make have some sort of an understanding of working out my emotions, and learning a bit of emotional intelligence through having a way to get everything out. And, as time went on and I began to dive a little bit more into the spoken word, that's kind of my era more so than poetry. So this book in and of itself is really new to me, because if I'm being honest, I never really had a desire to write a book, but we'll get there. And so 2024, fast forward 2024, I get this revelation from God. It's revelation and conviction all wrapped in one. And I realized how much I was disrespecting my spiritual gifting of being poetry. And why? Because I said something like, I never want to be a starving poet. Like, I like the art. I love it all, but I don't want to be a starving poet. And because I didn't want to be, I would do the poetry I was asked to do. I get the applause that I usually get, and I walk off. And I do the poetry quite simply because the gift was given to me. So it does come a bit simpler. But at the same time, I just was if I say, that's just poetry, like I'm this, I'm saying I'm disrespecting the gift, but ultimately I'm disrespecting the giver. So God convicted me in understanding that I gave you this gift. What you do with this gift is not primarily based on your feelings. It's not based on, no. I gave you this gift, so I ought to be using it. So in doing that, we go on vacation, and I don't say this to brag, but I'm just writing. I'm writing multiple poems. So a majority of these poems were written upwards of 2 years ago. And I began to write it, and I had all these other avenues I wanted to take with poetry, because now I'm convicted, and I don't want to be, disrespecting the gift, and I'm zealous, I want to run. And God slowed me down, and here we are today with picking flowers and pricking thorns. Remind me to tell you the story of the subtitle of Poems for the Soul, but we're not going to go there today. It's a funny story though. So nonetheless, I ended up going down this route of, writing a book. And, when it comes to poetry, like I said, I came through the spoken word era. That spoken word times where you on a mic and you ultimately performing, and I didn't do slams. That's just not my bag, and I stay in my own lane. But when it came to poetry, and I knew that I wanted to go to school, I began to study poetry. I had never studied poetry in my life. I never studied Maya Angelou. I loved her, but I never studied her. It wasn't even until my adulthood that I actually received a book of hers. I remember talking to a girlfriend, and I was like, yeah, I realized I don't even have a single poetry book. Like, I didn't enjoy reading poetry per se. I enjoy hearing it. I enjoy the performance because I enjoy rap and the coincide of the two. So yeah, I'm going on and on and on. What we have here is we have the book in full. We have here's the front cover of the book. I designed it myself. I'm pretty proud of it. One of the things that God oftentimes does with me is He'll give me this cover, and a cover or the visual design of something before I ever complete whatever the project may be. I remember receiving this in the mail, and I was exceptionally happy about, this particular product because of where I am in life, and some of my internal challenges and things of that nature. So it really just was a full circle moment for me. I'm gonna read the back cover and what it says, and then we'll close with a piece from the book. I'm gonna read it from the screen because this is the not for sale version, and I have a sentence that I do not want to be struggling with online. So it says, in picking flowers and pricking thorns, that's a mouthful, Jazmine DeWeese gathers some of her most intimate pieces and vulnerably displays them before you like art on the walls of a museum. hoping you would enjoy the tapestry of her heart beating outside of her chest. Her work isn't just poetry. She stands firm in the complexity of this raw intersection of beauty and brokenness. In these pages, you will witness a testimony of survival, a meditation on identity, and a declaration of faith amid vulnerable yet relatable challenges. She intrinsically weaves through the familiarity of struggle, identity, and survival, creating connective tissues between her flowers and our thorns, or her thorns and our flowers. So in her debut poetry collection, Deweese structures this work into 6 parts, formed by a single unfolding sentence. Before we knew how delicate flowers were, we looked at our scars, pricked from picking, and brought that pain to God, and he gave us purpose. So each section, it carries the reader through a progression from unawareness to understanding, from wounding to survival, to surrender, from survival to purpose. This collection is an invitation to witness what it means to bleed, to bloom, and to believe. So, guys, I really appreciate you guys tuning in today. We are, in fact, going to close with a piece from the book. And that piece is called, where we gonna go? Where we gonna go? Yeah. So we decided to go with a piece that is lunged right in the middle of the book. And I'm not going to, let me see where I can get it from. Yeah, let's get this poem. Is called Mason Jarred Butterflies. Mason Jarred Butterflies. Yeah. Okay. Mason Jarred Butterflies. Pretty mouths tell ugly lies. Bitter hearts erupt where wisdom resides. Pure souls beaten and battered. Emotions splattered like brain matter, and bullet fragments split cheeks. I can't seem to make out the chatter. Spirit sings hell's hymns dressed as lullabies. It's the whole you or the hole in you, a mason jarred butterfly. Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Eat, Don't Compete. Pick up the book today, Picking Flowers and Pricking Thorns. Jazmine Deweese, I'll see you soon. Peace.